Presentation. All right, there we are. Okay, good morning. So a lot of people have questions about natives and HOA, and I'm hopefully going to be able to give you some ideas and some answers as to it is possible and ways to get around it. So as Melanie also pointed out, I'm now at My Dragonfly Gardens. I'm a co-owner with my husband, Victor. And we are trying to, help people with natives, how to maintain them, install them, from the design, literally from the ground up. Let me start the presentation. And if anybody has questions, like Melanie said, you send them through on the chat and I'll be happy to help. Okay. So why plant Florida natives? We all know that it's so important to plant Florida natives here in Florida, just because of the dwindling ecosystems that they have out in the actual wild. And it's something that you're passionate about if you're a member of Passionflower. So it is easy to accomplish harmony in your neighborhoods. HOAs, apparently in Florida, there is approximately 28% of homeowners that are in HOAs. So there are a lot of concerns about using native gardens. A lot of people look at native gardens or hear about native gardens and they think, it's just a weed patch. Hopefully I will be able to give you some ideas that will help you to make it look more aesthetically pleasing and also to, not give natives a bad name. I'm not going to read all the bits on the slides. You guys are welcome to read it and I can share if anybody has any questions or anything. I'm quite happy to share some of the stuff that I have on here. Let's see. So let's go. Now, of course, key is the design. Design is the key. There are a lot of areas that you can make a very big difference and a big impact by creating something that looks more aesthetically pleasing. You need to have small stuff at the front, groupings, large groupings, things that make more sense. This is a picture of a property up in the Villages. And as you can see, they've used some natives. There is some non-natives in there, but they are Florida friendly. But this has a lot of natives in it. And it looks tidy and neat. And it actually is using natives to benefit the property. They've created large plantings and groups of shrubs, of perennials, so that it looks tidy. When you have gosh, I can't speak this morning. When you have large blocks of the same perennials, it is very easy to maintain. And I think that is something that is really important with HOA properties that are in HOAs, because you want it to look and feel tidy, but have impact. This one, how they've done it is by creating blocks of black-eyed Susan on the left-hand side, and then you have some clumps of African iris on the back there. There is calamint all around the tree, and this is, they've used two trees, I should say, to create impact. And that is a really good way to create a visual impact by using a specimen somewhere towards the center or towards the house so that you can create layering. This has some nice little gravel pathways around, and that is also another way to create visual interest by using pathways. This helps gain access to be able to maintain and to work on the gardens, and it also gives you something that looks tidier. Got too many places I have slides. So here is just we all know right plant, right place. It is something that is absolutely key. The more I learn about natives and the more I work with natives, it is an absolute must. You put the wrong plant in the wrong place, it is going to be miserable. If it is miserable, it will up and die on you. So right plant, right place. That, I can never express that enough, is right plant, right place. Again, what I was just talking about is large groups of the same plants. You want to always bear stuff in mind like water and light requirements. Things need to be put in, you can't put a plant that likes shade in a sunny spot. It's not going to work. It's going to get leggy and it's going to get untidy. Creating layers. Layers are really important because you want something that's visually pleasing. If you're looking or you're walking past a house and you look up the garden towards the house, you want us to be able to see different layers. And layering is really easy to do if you use clusters or clumping of plants. And then put the taller ones towards the back. That way it gives you something to look at and it pulls your eye down the garden as well. Of course, using natives helps save our water. And that's something that, a lot of associations and a lot of places, you're using a lot of water. And actually, in the summertime, you are restricted to how many times you can water. So, if you are trying to water grass, it's not cost effective. It costs a lot of money, and you're, wasting a lot of our valuable resource. So the best thing is to change to the natives, and by that way, you are reducing your water quantity, your herbicide, chemicals, pesticides, all those fun things that we know are causing a huge problem in our waters in Florida. So for the front garden, this is just some key things that I would use and I would say would be very beneficial for when you're trying to create or design somewhere. You want to use slow growing shrubs. Things like Walter's viburnum, denser, Yapon holly shillings, Simpson stopper, the dwarf version. Those grow slow. They still have habitat value. They still have flowers for the pollinators. They still have berries for the birds. And you don't need to keep cutting them into a ball like everybody does everywhere. They grow naturally in a very pleasing way. So it's a very minimal maintenance that you need to do with those. Then, of course, clumping wildflowers together. Black-eyed Susan, blanket flower, all of those look phenomenal. Unfortunately, they look phenomenal for a period and then they go messy. So you want something that is either going to reseed, so you can just cut it right back and let it come back, or otherwise something that's going to give you a long period of flowering and minimal maintenance. Then, of course, you want to create the focal or specimen plants that you want to have in the center of the property, or even off to the side, wherever you want to create something that gives you visual, something visual to look at. I like to use a tree or even a large shrub. Trees you can use. I love winged elm because they are a native. They are not a huge tree. They're moderately fast growing. They have a lot of habitat value. They are deciduous. So of course you also have to bear that in mind. Something that I've been looking at lately and I really like is a Simpson stopper. We undervalue Simpson stopper, and Simpson stopper can actually create a wonderful specimen tree of 15 foot in a property. So we can use it in smaller properties. Not everybody has a huge big garden, so it's nice to have something that can actually fill in and create visual. Of course, we can use firebush, regular firebush. They get to a nice size. I have one outside my window here, and it's about 12 foot tall now, and I can shape it up and make it into a small tree if I wanted to. Ground covers. Ground covers are most probably one of the most important because they help us create an edging. When you're not using grass, it is really good to create some form of a border, whether it be with gravel, with, heaven forbid, plastic edging, which is very practical, but it doesn't look great, but you can actually use a ground cover to grow over the top of it. Then, of course, using mulch. Use the same kinds of mulch. It's, when you look at some of these properties and people have got all these different kinds of mulch, it kind of pulls away from what you're trying to create. I like to use pine bark in the front properties if the gardens are level because it gives it a tidier look. Pine needles, of course, is better if you want the seeds to fall through, but I have actually been experimenting with pine bark and it does actually create seeds still, which is very interesting. Again, creating pathways to actually get access to the beds. That also can create something that gives you visually pleasing. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Steve Turnipseed's garden. He, through his property, has got different mediums. And it's actually a nice way to create different garden beds or garden rooms. But in the front of the property, it's nice to have pathways if you have just all natives so that you can gain access to work on and to walk around there. Again, also defining garden beds. That is something that I think a lot of people make a mistake with. Instead of having just a mass of plantings everywhere, if you create garden bed areas and then use the pathways to separate them, that also makes it look tidier and more pleasing. That photo I showed at the front, and I'll go back to that slide just so you can see, they have pathways there and you can see how it defines the different areas. So that is something that is really good to bear in mind when you're creating it and to make it look aesthetically pleasing for an HOA. So now let me go back to where we were. All right. So, of course, we all plant natives to bring pollinators and wildlife into our garden. You can do this by just making it, you don't have to manicure it, but by shaping stuff in the right way and by keeping it tidier, it makes it look a lot better. I live in an HOA. Our garden is my lab. And of course, I have a lot of plants in here that we've planted over the years. And we have to conform, just like everybody else, with certain things. So we are, always in the process of trying to make things look nicer and tidier and neater. And that is something that, it takes time, but it's worth it in the end. I don't know if any of you know about ductality, and this is something I like to put in my presentations because I think it's very important. People are always complaining and moaning about our oak trees, but I think once you tell them that why they are so important, and it's something that I think everybody should know. And I tell this to people, and people are always gobsmacked that an oak tree can supply that many caterpillars or for our birds and for lizards, for whatever. Everything eats the caterpillars. So this is another property. I think it's in the Villages as well. And this is a very shady spot. And as you can see, front yards or front gardens, the entrances is really hard to make it look tidy with natives. Here they've used swamp twinflower, wild coffee, some kunti, and then the sky blue cluster vine. That looks tidy enough, it's easy to maintain, and it's something, when you have a very shady front yard, it's really great to be able to use stuff like that and to make it look nice. Now, I don't know whether many people know, I'm sure a lot of people know this already. There are, if you look at the 2019-2020 Real Florida Gardener, there are a lot of different landscapes by different native landscape designers. I actually have 2 landscapes in there, and it shows you that it is possible to create a very, you can have a manicured or formal front yard, and you can have a natural front yard. And this way, you can see there are a lot of different designers in there that have used different things different ways, but I would definitely recommend looking at it, because it'll give you some different ideas. It depends on what you want at the end of the day. And if you are in an HOA, then you have to keep it kind of tidy. So of course, the other thing, we all know that the gardens can look great certain times of the year, but what you need to try and do, you've got to bring into consideration the different periods of the year and what it's going to be looking like. We have stuff that flowers in the spring, and we have stuff that flowers in the autumn. We don't have a lot of stuff that's in the summer and in the winter. So by using certain plants at different times of the year, you can actually create that. I try and give my clients, when I design, I always say to them, I will try and give them plants that flower all through the year. So you have some form of habitat going on for the butterflies, the insects, the birds. And that is really important. If you don't look, if you don't put things in that are going to be flowering all through the year, you could have, even if they're not flowering, I should say, you should have something that looks tidy or looks nice. Evergreens look great. Kuntis work fabulous because they last. They're very easy to maintain. They are use minimal water. They can take sun or shade. So that is something, of course, it's not flowering, but it is aesthetically pleasing and it's tidy to look at. There are a lot of different things, and I'm sure people know about some of the stuff that you can use. Tropical sage, that flowers pretty well throughout the year. Button sage, lantana involucrata is one of my absolute favorites because it is a shrub that never stops giving. It flowers all through the year. It has fruit all through the year. So I have mockingbirds and cardinals on it on a regular basis throughout the year, eating the berries, or and then pollinators. We've counted up to 16 different pollinators using that. So it's a very important source, and it flowers all through the year. So that is possible to create color and flowers and berries throughout the year if you need to. Firebush, as I say, firebush is incredible what habitat value it can help. Of course, this winter we have had some cold days, and I've seen some gardens up in the Villages that have no firebush. They burn to the ground. I've seen some down here. Mine have been fine. They haven't been touched. So it just depends. If we have more than 4 hours of cold weather, and we get air frost, we don't get ground frost here, obviously. But if we have a prolonged period of cold, freezing air, then it is going to damage them. The thing with firebush, they will come back. You wait until the spring, usually around about March time, cut it back, and it will come out of the ground. It won't grow back from the dead stems, unfortunately. But that is such an important shrub or small tree, whichever way you want to look at it. It can even grow really well in a pot. I've experimented with one in a pot and it works great. So, you know, you have those options depending on how big or how small your front area or your front garden is. So another interesting fact about natives, they help to clean our air. You know, we all know how bad the air pollution is, and you know, you don't need to mow. That is another thing. We're not adding fossil fuel pollution to the air. So that is a really important reason to plant natives. And of course, it helps everybody. We all need to breathe air. We're pretty well stuck without it. This is just a, you know, coral honeysuckle. Coral honeysuckle is another one. Of course, it doesn't flower in the wintertime, but it is a great plant that gives you flowers pretty well throughout the year, except for the winter. You know, the wintertime, it actually has berries that the birds really like to eat. So that is giving you some form of color or contrast throughout the year. Now, another thing that I'm not sure everybody is familiar with, but the Florida Statute. This is something that I like to let everybody know about, and I think it's very important that everybody does know about it. And if you are not sure or you haven't looked at it, definitely look it up. I put the ordinance number on the next slide so you'll be able to see, but it is very important. HOAs legally cannot stop you from putting Florida-friendly natives into your garden, especially turf replacement. So know your rights. That is really important. You know, it's something that a lot of people don't really understand or know. And you can do it. They can't really stop you. You can give them, you know, they can give you a hard time, sure. But you can definitely, you know, you have the right. You, as I say, you should know your rights. This is a section out of it. And of course, it's the ordinance is the 373.185 local Florida friendly landscaping ordinance. And this is just a insert from, a caption from the very beginning of the ordinance. Florida friendly landscaping means quality landscaping that conserve water, protect the environment, and are adaptable to local conditions and are drought tolerant. The principles of such landscaping include planting the right plant in the right place, are adaptable to local conditions, and are drought tolerant. Those are the things that we're trying to create with using natives. We're trying to conserve on all of that. So know your rights. Be able to go back to your HOA and say to them, look, we are allowed to do this. We can do this. We are helping the environment by doing this. So if anybody wants any more information about that, I'd be happy to share it. Or otherwise, I literally just Googled Florida friendly landscaping ordinances, and this is what came up. So it's very easy to find. If I can find it, anybody can find it.
And that's what our program next month is on.
Awesome. That's really important for people to know, because a lot of people don't understand that. And then, of course, the other thing, it helps to bring your communities to life. You know, natives are the way we have to move forward if we want to help conserve anything. And, you know, with COVID, it's actually helped people realize how important it is to do something like this, not only for ourselves to help ground ourselves, but also to help heal the earth. So, you know, please try, use natives. I know you guys all do. And if you have any problems with your HOAs, show them the ordinances and say, you know, this is what it is, and this is what we, you know, what we can do. I have included a slide with the references of where I've get my information. And as I say, if anybody wants anything like that, please feel free to reach out. I will be happy to help. Melanie, are there any questions?
Let me look. There are no open questions. I'm going to unmute. I'm unmuting all the participants. So if anyone wants to. There we go.
Kirsten, would you mind naming some of the plants that you like to use in a compact landscape? Like you named several, and I managed to get some of them down. But,
not a problem. Are you looking for shrubs or wildflowers?
Actually, I have a piece of my property that is bare at the moment, and that from the road, there's we're on a large property, so it's not the same situation, but we're wanting to screen some from the road. And so
Okay.
I'm thinking of some trees possibly, and also shrubs.
And that's awesome. And you know, when you're trying to create anything like that, I'm sorry, what was your name?
Kathy Perez.
Kathy. Oh, hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Yeah, no, that, you know, it's really important when you're trying to create any form of screening or anything like that is to use multiple different varieties of shrubs. Don't use one, which is a monoculture. You don't want to do that because it could cause problems. If something happens to one, it's going to kill the whole lot. But natives, that doesn't normally happen. What I would recommend for privacy hedging, Simpson stopper is an absolute must. It has flowers that are scented and berries. So put that towards near where you would be walking or anything like that. Then another one is Walter's viburnum. You have two different kinds of Walter's viburnum that are fairly good for that. I have been using Select lately, Walter's viburnum Select, and I'm in love with that shrub because it is fairly fast growing out of the Walter's viburnums. It has small leaves, it flowers multiple times of the year, and it is what I call like a vase shape. So it's more of an upright growth. Then you have the regular Walter's viburnum with the coochie, which is slower growing. It is more angular, so it goes in every direction. These are all evergreen, by the way. Then you also have Yupon hollies. There are, the main upright Yupon holly is Kathy Ann. That one is a great one. And just slow me down if you need me to go slower with these. Then firebush, always add firebush in the front of that type of hedging. The nice thing with those, Walter's viburnum Select grows the fastest out of all of them. Simpson stopper is slow for the first couple of years, then it starts to grow a bit faster. The Walter's viburnum, Walter's viburnum with Lacucci is fairly slow growing. It takes a couple of years to get going. The firebush also will grow fairly quick. And I would say use compact firebush instead of the regular one. The reason why I say the compact is it keeps its leaves all the way to the ground. So, and by doing that, you've got a nice variety of different things that flower and berry at different times. You can always throw in a beautyberry there. Beautyberry is deciduous, so bear that in mind. Put it at the front instead of towards the back. But that will create quite a nice hedging for you, and it'll give you some pretty good privacy.
Great, thank you.
Okay, no problem, Kathy. Any other questions?
I have a question. Have you ever used Marlberry?
I love Marlberry. I have two of them, and boy, do they have berries. The thing with Marlberry, and that's M-A-R-L berry, Marlberry, it needs afternoon shade. It will burn out if you put it in any afternoon sun. So just FYI.
Okay.
It is evergreen. They have wonderful scented white flowers on them that are in big clusters, and the pollinators love them. And then it has blackberries. Mine is actually, it has blackberries on it, green berries, and it's flowering. So it is going insane. But they're a really great, they're very dense evergreen. So if you have a shady spot, then it's a perfect thing to use. And they do reseed very easily, Melanie. I have lots of babies under mine.
I'm looking for an evergreen bush to add to a hedgerow. My neighbors recently cut down a big oak tree.
Oh, sad. Okay.
Very sad.
Yeah.
And so this area where I want this hedgerow used to be shade and now is pretty much full
blazing sun. Yeah, the Walter's Viburnum Select, you can use Florida Privet. That's another one that you can add. That will grow in sun or shade. It does better in full sun, of course, but it does drop its leaves. Mine have just gone through that already. They will literally take 2 weeks. They drop their leaves, they go bare, and then they flower, and then they leaf out again. So they do change very quickly, but you have to bear in mind that for 2 weeks or so, you will have no leaves on them. But that one is an important one because that also flowers and berries multiple times during the year, and the birds love them. My mockingbird goes, she protects it. None of the others are allowed near that one in the time whenever it's berrying because she eats all the berries.
and you said that one is fairly fast growing?
Florida Privet is fast growing. If it's happy and it's you know, yeah, I'm saying fast growing. Normally it's fast growing, but you can sometimes have conditions where they are a bit slower. You know, some of the native shrubs, there's a saying, first year they sleep, second year they creep, third year they leap. I've proved that it is true.
And I have another question. You've talked about Simpson stoppers. Have you tried red stoppers, or what's the other one? White
No,
stopper?
I have a white stopper. I haven't tried the red. The white stopper, I have never had flowers on it, and yet it seems to have some form of a berry. Maybe that is the flower. I'm not very familiar with it. The white stopper is more cold sensitive. It's mine. I've had it in the ground there for 4 or 5 years now, I think. And it burnt down, what was that, 5 years ago to the ground, and it's growing back up. They're very narrow, more columnal, pretty shaped leaf, small, well, not small leaf. It's bigger than the Simpson stopper. The red stopper, I have no knowledge of. And I think that also might be cold sensitive. So it's more South Florida.
Yeah. What about the hollies to put in a hedgerow?
So Eagleston, which is a hybrid, that does have berries. That is one of the, it's a faster growing, and you can get them with their leaves all the way to the ground. So that does create a really good visual hedge. Unfortunately, nursery standards is they shape them like a pyramid. Once you let it grow and come out of that shape, it is a very pretty shape. It's a proper tree. It just needs time to get over being shaped into a Christmas tree forever. But that one is a good one. The birds like it because they can hide in there. It's very dense. And also, of course,
And that's the Yopon holly?
No, that is the Eagleston holly. It has the bigger leaves.
Eagleston.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one is also, and I would recommend putting as big as you can of those, you know, a 15-gallon or something like that. I use them sometimes as like a centerpiece because it is a nice dark evergreen, and they have fairly big
And that
leaves.
will take full sun?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That grows well in full sun.
Hi, this is Donna. Would the Eagleston holly also do okay in a more northern exposure where it gets a little less sun?
That one, I'm trying to think if I've ever put it in. So what does it get? It's does it get any morning sun?
No, it's actually more a little bit in the afternoon, and it kind of depends on the time of year as to,
Yeah,
you know,
so it changes. I am not 100% sure about that, Donna. I would have to look at it, but I'm trying to think if it's just a little afternoon sun. What time of the day is the afternoon sun? Late afternoon?
Yeah, later in the afternoon.
Okay.
Pretty much from about 2 o'clock to about the end of the day.
Okay.
In
so
the
it
summer.
does get our hot afternoon sun. So it may possibly be okay. And the winter it gets no sun?
Yeah, right now that whole bed is shaded all winter long.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would look into it and just check, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So I don't want to say yay or nay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And how big does that get if you let it go?
It's pretty big. It'll get to, 15 foot, 20 foot.
Oh, yeah. So,
yeah. Are you trying to find something that's going to give you color in that area?
I'm looking for something more looking just for something to a more columnar, I think, than that. Then
Okay.
So something more columnar. I tried a pencil holly there, and that didn't it didn't
They
suit.
are hard to grow. Let me tell you, they're very, very, very slow. You might want to try the white stopper. And I know GIG has some of them at the moment. They did. That is more columnal, and it's fairly slow growing. It's not going to grow more than maybe a few inches a year, 2-3 inches a year. So that might work, and it's evergreen.
That sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a question from Alana. Any good lavender perennials that do well in 9B zone? Fern leaf lavender, is cotton lavender more a northern plant? Does it do well in 9B? Is yellow?
No, lavenders, as in lavender from Europe and from the Med, or what is she?
I don't know.
Or is she on about lavender color?
Alana, you'll have to answer that. Lavender color or the lavender plant?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
I was just wondering about any lavender plants. Yeah, some purple shrubs or
Oh,
low.
sure. Yes, go on.
Oh, just which lavenders it does. I'd like to add some in the front yard, but
Okay.
I know that fern leaf does fairly well. But is it just something? Is it perennial, annual? Does it come back, or what about cotton lavender? I think that's more of a northern. It's a yellow poof ball kind of.
I'm not familiar with either of those. If you want something with purple flowers, is it sunny or shady?
It's about 6 hours of sun.
Morning or afternoon?
Afternoon.
Okay, so hottest sun. There are a couple of lavender flowering perennials. There is beach verbena. That one it likes a lot of hot, dry sun. Doesn't like too much water. It takes a little to get it established, but once it's established, it's a pretty nice perennial, and it does phenomenal in the winter. It's kind of interesting. It likes the cooler weather for some reason, even though it's a hot, dry plant, a scrub plant. You also have some of the Conradina. So you've got large flowering mint. That's a lavender pink flower. You've got the large flowering mint, the scrub mint. Both of those are like a woody perennial. They don't get very tall. They like a lot of the afternoon sun, and they have almost like a rosemary leaf. So they're pretty. They work well. Those are just the three. There is also, let me think what else there is. There is a moss verbena that I know GIG are growing at the moment, and I'm experimenting with it. And it has a very fine leaf and a very pretty, typical verbena flower. That one also likes hot, dry sun, and it has a beautiful purple flower. So shrubs, there are no shrubs that have purple flowers there that I can think of at the moment. Button sage, that has pink flowers, but it has purple berries and it's evergreen. And then also beautyberry is purple berries and pink flowers. So that's some different things that you could try for those areas.
Which ones would be under about 3 feet height?
Under 3 feet, all the perennials that I told you first. So the beach verbena, that one is that doesn't get more than maybe a foot tall. The Conradina, the large flowering, actually both of those, large flowering mint and scrub mint, also stay fairly low. So they get to about 1.5 feet, maybe 2 foot, the large flowering.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I see there's some stuff on the chat, Melanie.
Yes, that's what I'm looking.
That's what you're going through. Okay, good.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, but
Nobody's responded.
yeah, I don't see any other questions.
Okay.
Let's see, Q&A. Oh, Donna Kozik says, please repeat the name of the plant that has blossoms and berries all year.
That is one of my favorite, button sage, Lantana involucrata. I love that thing.
And that's a full sun. How much water?
That prefers full sun. I've seen it in part sun, more afternoon sun. It gets to about 4 foot by about 4 foot. It's more or less a light bulb shape, unless you have corky stem passion vine growing in it, then you get it a lot bigger. Because they're competing. But it is a very cool perennial. I mean, a shrub. I love it. It grows fairly fast, and the birds and the insects just go crazy for it. So it's a very great one. So Lantana involucrata is the scientific, or button sage, or wild sage, a couple of common names. Okay. Will sky blue cluster vine grow in zone 9B? Oh, yes. That is actually, and that is one that is a great, I'm glad you mentioned that actually. Sky blue cluster vine is actually from South Florida. We're here in Claremont. What are we? We're zone 9B.
Yeah, 9B.
If we do have cold, it will freeze to the ground. It'll come back. Mine hasn't frozen down. I have some of it growing in my plum tree out the front. It is a winter flowering vine. So it is really important for our pollinators in the winter. It starts flowering from October through until May. So if you have somewhere to grow it, I would highly recommend it. It grows fairly quickly. It's very easy to trim back. It has heart-shaped green leaves. and little blue flowers that are usually abuzz with insects. So it's a great vine. I've tried using it as a ground cover and growing up things, and it works both ways.
Oh, wow.
And again, is that a full sun, and how much water?
That can actually do full sun and shade. It doesn't really care. It's pretty adaptable. I've seen it flowering fairly good shade as well. Actually, I have it underneath the bamboo and it's flowering in there. Not as much, of course, if it's in more sun, it's more flowers. I know it says zone 10 and 11. It is actually endangered in the wild. So that is something, that is a reason why I like to use it, because it is something that, you know, is endemic to Florida and it is endangered. So it's really great to use it. And like I say, it dies to the ground if we have cold. Mine has not done that this year. So it's been fine.
Great. That is all the questions I see. Anyone have any other questions? No. Okay.
We're good.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're
Thank
good. So
you.
thank you, Kirsten.
You are
Yes,
most
thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. It was great. A lot of
Hopefully
good
it was
information.
informative. My tongue was getting tied in knots today for a little bit, which is unusual. That doesn't normally happen. Ask Melanie, she knows.
You did great. Great
All
job.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, enjoy and plant natives. It's really important. You guys all know that, so just keep doing it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Have
Thank
a
you so
great rest of
much.
the weekend. Thank you.